Hi guys, I'm Eric, a tax and litigation intern at a local CPA firm here in Baton Rouge. And today I wanted to bring you a couple of tips that it comes whenever you're working remotely or from home during this COVID-19 pandemic that we've all been faced with and have the challenge of facing. So a lot of my tips today will actually be more geared toward the accounting profession, but I believe that anyone can latch on to these tips and apply it to your own professional career as well. And so first, I wanted to bring up the importance of communication with your managers. So on a normal day in the office, whenever you're doing your work in the office, this is important. But now that you're actually having to work from home, you're working remotely, it is even more important that you have a line of communication with your managers and that they know what you're working on. And so, in the accounting profession in particular, a lot of your learning and on the job communication skills and professional development is on a trial and error basis. And so, this year, actually, I was put into my first tax season as a preparer of both individual business returns and even some estate and trust returns as well. And so there were a lot of mistakes made already in the first couple months that I learned from, and I had the privilege of talking one on one with the manager in his or her office. However, now that I am working remotely and from home, I've had to gear my communication more toward, hey, we have a Microsoft Teams app. Let's chat there. Let's communicate there. Let's schedule a Zoom call at this certain time for us to go over this client or this client's return. So just doing that is super important. Being intentional with your communication with your managers is super important. Also, just knowing your due dates. There are certain returns now that have been extended for Louisiana and the federal return as well. So knowing those due dates are important to get your clients either out in time or an extension. And then also just knowing what your manager expects of you and when they expect you to do it. So I also do some litigation projects with our litigation department at my CPA firm as well. And knowing when they need that spreadsheet, when they need that valuation done is super important for me to communicate my information needed so that they can pick up the project and do whatever they need on their end as well. So number two, communication with clients. Is also super important in the accounting profession during this time, but I would say it's even more crucial for the tax profession during this time, given, and that goes into my third point, given the changes in tax litigation, but also just in the economic litigation sphere as well during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's important for you to reach out to your client and to let them know of these changes that are happening in the law and that can directly affect them, usually during this time to an advantage standpoint that could be advantageous for their business or for their individual tax planning setting. So that goes into my third point. In order for you to communicate that well, it is important for you to stay abreast on the litigation, both on the House and Senate floors that is going on. That could be, to address a PPP loan, what changes are made in that, what are some changes in the CARES Act that could affect an individual estate or business return, what are some business losses that they can deduct in future years going forward, but also just proposed bills and proposed forms of law that has not been actually fully formed into being law itself. Staying abreast on those as well is also super critical during this time. So, for example, the HEROES Act was passed in the House, waiting Senate approval. Knowing a background of what could occur in that is also super important, just so that you can give your client, hey, here's a heads up. Here's how we can maximize your benefit on the 2020 tax return going forward whenever we get to that point next year. Okay? Then also number four, find a niche that you have that you're wanting to explore, whether that could be an tax, audit, payroll, litigation, etc. I know that during this time, I have had the privilege of working in our litigation department a lot more than I would just on a normal day-to-day basis. And so I've really got to explore what I'm passionate about in litigation. And as someone who does want to go to law school and get his JD, being able to see what these people are doing in a day in, day out basis, that it's not just foreign concepts and it's not just books and stacks and just witnessing in the courtroom. It's doing all this back work for the cases that you're actually on. And being a part of those cases and being part of those discussions has made me feel more valued as an employee, not just as, oh, here's the intern getting us coffee, et cetera, et cetera. So I encourage you, especially if you're an intern and you're not settled in a certain department at your CPA firm, that you actually just find a niche. Go out of your comfort zone. Research more on the topic that you're passionate about. Tax, audit, governmental, litigation, you name it. There's always something more to learning the accounting profession. So I challenge you during this time, whether you might have off or you're working remotely, to explore those ideas. I know right now our tax workload has slowed up. So it's giving us more opportunities to do more training, do more continuing professional education that we have not been able to do during the heaviest parts of the tax season. And then last but not least, it's important that you still connect with your coworkers, that you still network, that you still have fun times where you can connect with your people inside your workplace, where it's not a stressful environment of doing tax returns or doing litigation projects or completing audits or doing payroll, you name it. And so it's important to kind of think outside the box on this one. I know that for my company in particular, we had a day where we just did a bingo night. It lasted from about 5 o'clock until whenever we wanted to stop. And so just having that time just to decompress, to connect with our coworkers, even though we're not physically in the office, and still have fun is so important. And also just reaching out on LinkedIn, professional websites that have job openings if you're not already at a current CPA firm, or if you're looking to explore your professional network, is super important. And it's super important for you to stay connected in those areas as you move forward. And so that's my 5 tips that I wanted to bring to you today. I encourage you to stay well, stay healthy, and also just keep your professional mantra on while you're facing this COVID-19 pandemic. Try to stay productive, but also acknowledge that you're a human. Acknowledge your human side. Talk to your managers. Communication, as I mentioned countless times in this video, is super important. And remember to keep that communication up with both your managers, your clients, and your coworkers. Thank you, and have a great day.